Okay, guys, so as news of the assassination spread across Europe, few people could have imagined the impact it would have. But when the Germans offered their unconditional support to Austria-Hungary, the complex web of European alliance came into play. What had started as a local crisis triggered a chain of events that set Europe careening headlong into a full-scale war. Okay. Here's the German forces moving swiftly to seize the Belgian capital, Brussels, in the first month of the war. Within days of Austria's declaration of war on Serbia, Europe's military leaders put their war plans into action. On July 31, the Russians announced that they were moving their army into position, ready to help their Serbian allies against Austria-Hungary if necessary. The Germans saw this as an act of aggression. So on August 1, they declared war on Russia. The French, in turn, rallied their troops to support the Russians. This provoked the Germans to declare war on France on August 3rd. Okay, so following along on this map that you guys have, okay? So we've got Austria declares war on Serbia. Okay, so that's the first thing that happens. But then Russia moves in to help Serbia. So now we've got Russia and Serbia against Austria-Hungary here. And then the Germans, who are over here, see this as an act of aggression. So they step in and declare war on Russia. So now we've got these guys basically versus these guys, okay? And the French then step in to help their green guys. So now we basically have here, here, and here against here is basically what's happened here at the very start of the war. And so we've got two competing structures, and I'm coming back over here to show you this quick video, right? We're going to see... Here's an old video of the war getting started as people are saying goodbye to their loved ones that are going to go off and fight in the war. And so we've got the Triple Alliance, of course, which is these guys. Okay, so that's the Triple Alliance versus what they're calling the Triple Entente. Okay. And then their smaller nations are going to be stepping in as well here as we go. Okay. All right. So we've got this all happening here. Here's two British soldiers nicknamed Tommies, and they're boarding a train at London Station bound for France. All right. And then we've got this Schleifen plan. And there is a video on this that we are going to be able to watch as well, I think. Why is that back here? Okay. Oh, it's going to flash back to this Schleifen plan. So Germany was now at war with France to the west and Russia to the east. Okay. So you've got Germany, and they're at war with Russia to the west, France to the east. Okay. War on two fronts would mean splitting the army in two, weakening its effectiveness. But back in 1899, the military commander Alfred von Schleifen had anticipated this problem and had prepared a plan. His theory was that Russian troops would take at least 6 weeks to get ready to cross the German frontier because their vast country had a very poor railway network. This would give the Germans plenty of time to defeat France on the Western Front before dealing with Russia on the Eastern Front. So on August 4, 1914, the German army put the Schleifen plan into action. They marched into Belgium, heading for Paris by the shortest, flattest route. Okay, so we've got a thing over here about the Schleifen plan, and let me click on that. Okay, so this is Count Alfred von Schleifen, okay, and he was thinking about how this was going to happen and that this problem might emerge, right? So what did he do? Well, he came up with a plan, and his plan was that if this happened and Germany went to war with Russia and France at the same time, they would turn and fight France first and then turn back, because it would be a while before the Russians would have been able to get everybody over here to the border, because their country is so big and their railroad system is not very strong. The Germans, however, did not expect Britain, the world's greatest sea power, to join a European land war. But by invading Belgium, they made a big mistake. Okay? So Germany here invades Belgium. And that's going to be a big mistake because Britain is going to get into the war because of that. Belgium was a neutral country, and Britain had a long-standing treaty to protect it. The German chancellor considered the agreement a mere scrap of paper, but the British took it more seriously. Belgium's ports provided a vital link between Britain and the rest of Europe. If the Germans captured them, it would severely harm British trade and security in the English Channel. 11 hours after the invasion, Britain declared war on Germany. Okay, so we've got Britain over here, right? And here's the little Belgium, who is kind of a neutral country. And Germany decides, well, we're going to go into France through Belgium because it's really flat. We're going to go right in through here. Well, when they did that, Britain said, we're going to war against you too. So now they're fighting France, they're fighting Britain, and they're fighting Russia. And this says the United Kingdom, but that is Britain. Britain's over there in the United Kingdom. Europe was up in arms, but many people still believe that diplomatic talks could diffuse the situation. The British King George V and Kaiser Wilhelm II were both grandsons of Queen Victoria, and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia was married to one of her granddaughters. They hoped their family ties would make a war between their countries impossible. But despite a flurry of telegrams from one cousin to another, it was too late to stop the military advance that had been set in motion. So we've got Queen Victoria, who's the grandmother of Europe, sits at the heart of her extended family. Seated on the left is Kaiser Wilhelm II, and behind him in a bowler hat is Tsar Nicholas II, and behind him is his uncle, the future Edward VIII, the father of George V. So despite the fact that like all these people are sort of related, the war is not stopping. And they are moving forward despite that. And let me see. Yeah. So here we go now. We're going to go over to page 18 and 19. Okay, and here's page 18 and 19 here. And the plans are going to start to unravel. As the fighting began, Army commanders put into action war plans made years before, but neither the plans nor the men's training took into account the massive advances made in weapons technology during the previous 2 decades. So they had these plans that are like 20 years old. By the end of the first month's fighting, it was clear that the war was not going to go according to plan. New weapons would mean a new kind of war. Here's the Big Bertha. This gun could fire over 9 miles. 9 miles. That is so far. I mean, that's like half the way from like where I live in Bulls Gap to Greenville. It's like 17 miles, I think, to Greenville. Belgian soldiers defend a bridge against German troops. The Belgian army was far outnumbered, so could only hope to slow the German army's advances. All right, so as Germany is kind of busting through Belgium here, they're just trying to slow them down. Just kind of keep trying to push them back. For the Schlieffen plan to work, the German army chief of staff, Helmuth von Moltke, needed his troops to push through Belgium and on to Paris as quickly as possible. But the Belgians put up an unexpectedly stubborn resistance from their forts around the city of Liège. They inflicted heavy losses on the Germans and slowed their progress. But eventually, Moltke's troops smashed through the forts using their secret weapon, a massive siege cannon known as Big Bertha. After that, they swept through Belgium, terrorizing soldiers and civilians alike. Okay, and it says there are some things here. Here's the invasion of Belgium. Okay, so here's a video that's showing us the invasion of Belgium. And that's probably Big Bertha there being moved around. Wow. Okay, and over here you got kind of where the battles were occurring there in Belgium. So here's Germany trying to get through. Netherlands is up here trying to get through. And here's where a bunch of battles were occurring. You know, Germany's trying to quickly get into France. before the Russians come in on the other side and start attacking them. The Belgians fought gallantly, but were forced to retire into the vicinity of Antwerp. The French attacks advanced for several days, then were bloodily repulsed and forced back by German counterattacks. By the 26th of August, the Allied situation, okay, and remember who the Allies are. Okay, the Allies are over here, France and Russia and Britain, okay, and Serbia down over here. So their situation looked grave. The Germans were threatening a massive envelopment through Belgium with superior forces, and the Allies were badly positioned right now to meet it. So at this moment right now, it's looking like Germany is going to win. I mean, they're really doing a good job, and they're advancing here on what's going on. And okay. So, okay, let's go back to where we were. Yeah. Okay. German advanced to Paris. And I'm trying to find that on here. What month are we in here? Let's see. I'm not seeing the German advance to Paris on this thing here. Yeah, I'm not seeing that showing up on my map, but that's okay. Okay, so as the Germans advanced through Belgium, a British force of about 100,000 men landed in France and clashed with the Germans near a Belgian town of Mons. Okay, so as the Germans were coming through Belgium, here come the Brits. Okay, and they're coming over here, and they are at this, and they're going to fight them. And at the same time, the French launched Plan 17, their strategy to take back Alsace and Lorraine. I don't know how to pronounce the name of that town. With a series of offenses along the Franco-German frontier that became known as the Battle of the Frontiers. Okay. And I'm looking there to see about the Battle of the Frontiers, and I don't see that either on here. So I don't see anything there. At this stage, the pace of the war was rapid and exhausting. Armies were constantly on the move across the battlefields. It was the first time many of the soldiers had faced machine guns, and chaotic battles were fought under a hail of bullets. The Allies were outnumbered and outgunned at every turn. The French, fighting in red and blue uniforms, made easy targets. That was a big thing. The French's uniforms they weren't camouflaged at all. And they suffered huge casualties. Forced to retreat, they abandoned their Plan 17. Now they were fighting to save Paris itself. Okay. To the east, the Russian forces moved quicker than the Germans had expected. So here comes Russia over here into Germany. On August 4th, they invaded East Prussia, which is now northern Poland. Okay, so they invaded up over here. They invaded Poland over there. There was only a small German army there. They forced Moltke to divert 100,000 troops away from France. So Moltke over here is coming into France. Well, he's got to take these guys, these 100,000 guys, and come back now because Russia's coming in on this side. On August the 22nd, the Germans began their counterattack, driving the Russians into dense woodland near Tannenberg. There, in just 4 days, Russia suffered one of the most crushing defeats of the war, with around 60,000 casualties. The Germans captured some 92,000 Russian soldiers and 500 guns. After further defeats at the Masurian Lakes, the Russian army retreated from East Prussia for good. Okay, so over here is the East Prussia campaign, it says. Let's see what that says. So the Russians invaded exposed German East Prussia with their first army from the east and their second army from the south. And although these two armies did not advance in unison, a small German victory, okay. Outnumbered German left a cavalry screen in front. Here it heavily defeated the Russian First Army in the Battle of the Masurian Lakes. This is the 9th to 14th of September. So it looks like they have a little bit of a video here of this as well. Okay, so here's Germany, right? And the battles that they're trying to have here with Russia over here on the side. Okay, fighting for Paris. Despite the Russian diversion, the Germans had come within 25 miles of Paris. So despite the fact that the Germans were, the Russians were coming in, the Germans here made it within 25 miles of the capital city here of Paris. So they were almost there. The French government fled along with 1 million Parisians. Okay, so when they came that close to Paris, the government fled, and so did a bunch of the Parisians, leaving the rest to prepare for a siege. A siege is, of course, when they're just kind of clocked in there. They're kind of stuck in there. On September 3rd, the French commander-in-chief of the Allied troops, okay, so the commander-in-chief of these troops over here, Joseph Joffre, ordered his men to take up a defensive position along the River Marne, which I believe is this river right here. 3 days later, the Battle of the Marne began. Okay, and we're going to come over here. We've got the Marne campaign right here, and we're going to pull that up. Okay, so here's another video here of the Marne campaign. Okay, so the Germans now, right, are trying to trap the French east of Paris. And the French commander settled 2 armies in strong defensive positions and shifted the majority of his forces westward to block the German advance. Reinforcements from Paris helped stabilize the French Sixth Army protecting the capital. The French Sixth Army launched an attack on the Germans' First Army flank as it passed east of the city. When the German First Army shifted west to block the attack, it opened a gap in the German line, and the British force and the French attacked what would become a 40-mile gap between the German First and Second Armies. And the French forces were able to hold the line, and the Germans were now worried about being trapped, so they withdrew. They reformed on a line stretching from Noyon to Verdun. This marked the end of the Schlieffen Plan and of Germany's hopes for a rapid victory over France. So the Germans were forced back, which meant they didn't catch France really quickly like they were really hoping to. Strengthened by extra British troops and French reinforcements transported from Paris in a fleet of taxis, the Allies now had the advantage. Remember who the Allies are. That's your greens. Okay, the green now had the advantage. Their exhausted German opponents had marched more than 150 miles and were running out of supplies. By September 9, the battle had turned against them and they began to retreat. The Schlieffen Plan had failed and Paris was saved. Okay, and here are some of the 29,000 German troops. And a troop is actually a person in the battle. So 29,000 German soldiers were captured during the fighting on the Marne, and they're being marched into captivity. Okay, and then these are the last 2 pages here. During the opening months of the war, thousands of men throughout Europe enthusiastically volunteered to fight, confident that this was going to be a quick, clean contest and that they would all be home for Christmas. But by October 1914, armies on both sides stopped advancing as they were ordered to dig trenches along the Western Front, the German frontier with Belgium and France. The fighting rapidly reached a stalemate where neither side was winning. As winter set in, soldiers realized that they faced a long and bloody fight in the mud. So they all thought this was going to be over very quickly in the winter of 1914. And in fact, it absolutely was not. And so now you've got all these different battles and stuff that have occurred, and we're now here into the winter of 1914, and nobody has won this war at this point. And so that's going to be the end of pages through page 21 of the World Wars.